Welcome to the panel on increasing youth engagement in the public health supply chain workforce as part of the SAPICS virtual conference events. On behalf of Chemonics, we thank you for your participation and hope that these discussions and the insights that we are going to get from this meeting will be very helpful and very useful for your practice in the near future. So without any further ado, let me introduce the panelists to this section in the Congress. We have a very distinguished group of practitioners from all over the world. Let me just introduce first Rose Anagnu. She's the project management assistant in the Office of Health, USAID, Benin. We have also Herman Bonu, young logistician professional in Aboney, Calabi, the health zone in Benin. Ricardo Misun, President, African Logistician Association Federation. Yucabet Otieno, Project Officer. Pamela Steele Associate. Jean-Pierre Saleh, Country Director, USAID Global Health Supply Chain TA Project on behalf of Chemonics, the international TO, the Francophone TO, sorry. And Dr. Daniel Zapata, Global Program Manager, the QRMA Foundation. And my name is Juan Felipe Sanchez. I'm also with Chemonics. The Chief of Party in a supply chain project, in education supply chain project in Honduras that we just closed out last month. So please, the next slide. Before we go into the discussions, let me introduce to you Chemonics and also some of the topics that we are going to see today. Chemonics is, our mission has been, is to promote meaningful change around the world. We help people live healthier, more productive, and more independent lives. Our practices range from supply chain to education and youth, to health, and to private sector development. We have a global presence with experience in 145 countries, currently in 100 countries, and 90% of our staff are locally hired professionals. Next slide, please. Let's zoom into the Global Health Supply Chain Program. This program, through this, we drive healthy markets and we help them to realize operational efficiencies and engineer economies of scale to ensure uninterrupted supply of commodities. We have delivered over 1 billion commodities worldwide in some of the most difficult to reach places in the world. We are serving with health commodities in over 60 countries and help supporting their health systems, helping to strengthen their health systems, providing technical assistance to 43 countries that includes 34 country offices with 1,300 staff. The on-time delivery average for this program to date in Q4 fiscal year, in Q4 fiscal year 2019 was 92%. Next slide, please. Within the Global Health Supply Chain Program, we are continually using data, technology, and innovative approaches to ensure that operations are efficient and reach those who need life-saving commodities around the world. We partnered with local governments and local partners to help build their resilience and to help strengthen or achieve robust supply chains. We collaborate with the US government programs for HIV/AIDS, malaria, FPRH, MNCH, and other emerging health threats. Procurement services have been provided to over 60 countries and system is strengthening to over 43 countries. Also, we provide warehousing logistics using the economies of a scale that we have to have because we have this global operation, and we help our partners to achieve by bundling volume, increasing competition, and expanding the number of suppliers in many commodity areas for long-term value and sustainability. So before I continue with the panel, let me also use this opportunity to present a reflection on the youth engagement, some youth engagement concepts that will help us frame the discussion that we are going to have in the next minute. You see in this slide that we are the youth engagement process. There are many opportunities for engaging youth in the different stages of the supply chains, from selection going all the way to quantification and forecasting, to procurement activities, to distribution, and to stock management activities. And depending on the degree, the intensity of the engagement, youth can be involved in the planning or the execution or the controlling activities along these stages of the supply chain. Now, there are 4 possibilities for this youth engagement that range from building awareness of young people about the supply chain opportunities and the requirements, so providing information for them so that they understand supply chains, going into capacity enhancement, which is basically what we are going to discuss today, which is enhancing youth supply chain skills or life skills to participate in the different activities, the different stages of the supply chain. As we will see today, we will focus on this particular theme, and we will look with our guest panelists the opportunities and the challenges and the possibilities for the future in terms of professionalization and certification of young people to be part of the supply chain processes. But also, and I leave this as a reflection for all the participants, we can also look into the future opportunities for young people to continue being engaged in supply chain processes, going all the way to working together through internships or first job opportunities, or even, why not, to become supply chain entrepreneurs. This will be the sustainability goal of youth engagement in supply chains, so that we have more and more people that can participate in different types of supply chains, public and private, education, health, and others. And why not to have some youth entrepreneurs that are owners, that are partners in the supply chain process. And let's not forget that the largest business in the world nowadays is a huge supply chain process. So this, without any further ado, let's go into the main session, and go. Let me go into the next slide, please. Okay, so we have the first segment of the panel will focus on the challenges of youth engagement, youth professionalization in supply chain processes. And I will pose the question to Daniel: what are some of the key challenges in messaging, retention, and outreach in youth capacity building for supply chain management that you have come across in your experiences?
Thank you, Felipe. So I think one of the main challenges in relation to messaging, retention, and outreach relate to supply chain management education. And I think there is a tendency to see cost rather than investment for young people and also for organizations. So many people still have the question, does it really pay off to go, for instance, into the university for 3 years and do a bachelor program in logistics and supply chain management? Or organizations think, okay, do I really need to hire a supply chain management professional instead of, for instance, a pharmacist that can do the job as well? So I think something that we still need to be doing more is quantification of the impact of supply chain management training and education. So we need to show that high competences lead to better payment and also to more competitive advantage for organizations. And I think this will help in terms of clarifying the message and promoting the outreach as well for both individuals and organizations. And eventually as well, I think this will contribute for better payment schemes, for instance, or for better job descriptions in the industry as well.
Oh, Felipe, you're muted.
Sorry. Thank you, Daniel, for your insights. Let's go to you, Cabet. What gaps in skills or capabilities do you see in the process of engaging youth in supply chain from education and pre-service to joining the job market?
Okay, thank you very much, Felipe, for the question. And I'd also like to reiterate what Daniel has said in terms of, how can we also ensure that based on, the capacity and the challenges that they're actually facing for the youth to actually be engaged. And one key thing I found out is on a document done by Supply Chain X titled Millennials and the Supply Chain Talent Gap, where we're looking at the youth, they say that about only 1.3% of all business studies are dedicated to supply chain management. Therefore, this already shows a huge gap when it comes to the educational aspect of us looking at supply chain and looking at it in terms of those who actually carry out the aspects of supply chain. Are they trained enough for them to carry out supply chain? I recently posed the same question to someone who is an intern in terms of how have they found the supply chain sector, taking into account they have just joined the job market. And this is someone who is from the educational aspect and they're coming, they're sort of between the pre-service and the joining the job market. And what they highlighted was that the lack of experience universities, because universities only offer classroom environment. And then there is also a lack of mastery in specific areas in supply chain. Universities just provide the general knowledge of supply chain, and thus it is difficult for graduates to master any specific area in supply chain. Lack of soft skills, especially interpersonal communication. There's induction programs that are unfavorable. Unfortunately, you find that even when organizations go to actually do the taking up students, they're not giving them all that they're equipped to be able to do this. Therefore, coping capabilities for most graduates once they join the job market is very difficult and they're not able to clearly adopt into the area. Therefore, how do we reduce this gap? Moving away from formal trainings, we need to bring about the aspect of encouraging organizations to take up youth as interns, having more mentors in the sector, and ensuring that we are also having sort of on-the-job training whereby the youth can be able to learn from other people. Thank you.
Thank you, Yukabet. Your last insight leads me to the next question, which will be posed to Rose and Ricardo. So how can we design youth engagement approaches in supply chain management by making room for historically marginalized groups of youth, including young women and socioeconomically disadvantaged communities in the inception process?
Okay, thank you. I will go first. And I think that we have to define a sustainable nationwide approach and taking into consideration all the gender and social economical communities. And that includes supporting the local youth supply chain professional logistician association, and then also harmonized through an harmonized curriculum, because in our country we don't have a specific supply chain curriculum. So we have to harmonize it and then update the one that is existing now to fit the current needs. And then we have to support also that as those young people that want to take part to those education. And then through this, I think that can be a start point. And another point also is to include the free model, the public sector model, the public-private partnership model, and the supply chain government model. And that part requires the donors' mobilization and coordination. All donors that are intervening in the supply chain should come together and then sit and then try to find a way to design a sustainable approach to do things. And then also we can say that the factor youth is a key asset. You know, when you invest in the youth, it's very a cost-effective action. And we saw it here in Benin through the Young Logistician Professional Program, which is currently very, very effective and doing some proof here, and then giving idea to other donors to make that experience, because they are see the result in the a short time frame, and then they wanted to use that same approach to solve other problems.
Excellent. Daniel?
Thank
Yes,
you.
Thank you very much. Sorry, is it me?
Sorry, Ricardo, sorry. Ricardo, please go ahead.
Thank you. I think Rose have covered most of the important parts of my answer, but I would like to also add some few things. In fact, designing this kind of youth engagement approach, we definitely need to understand what they need. And I think my other colleagues who just intervened highlight some of those needs and challenges. And to answer the how, to proceed, I would like to take an example. For instance, having available, knowledgeable, skilled, and well-performed youth supply chain professionals used by both public and private sectors to contribute to make available for their communities the quality life-saving commodities. So if, for instance, we are going to have this impact, so to design a program in this area, the main challenges to address will be the quality of pre-service training. So I think Lucabeth clearly mentioned the training curricula, but also I would like to highlight the framework that can ensure youth access to real-life situations and prepare you for job and entrepreneurship. And this bring out the internship accessibility that also has been highlighted. And at the end, I will talk about the professional life development and experience. And to cover all those aspects, I think from my own experience and being the president of African Logistician Association Federation, I don't see how to design an effective and sustainable supply chain management youth engagement approach without engaging with national professional association, collaborating with them, learning from their experience, and adapting to, to what we are going to design. And they need to be at the table. So I think also that there are some criteria, when we are in the beginning of this design, we need definitely to make sure that the geographical access, the gender equity, those are things important that need to be taken into account. We need to ensure also competition among professionals, youth. We also need when they don't exist, they doesn't exist, I mean the professional association, we need to support the establishment, or if it exists, we need to support and empower them, you know, to lead this program. So other thing to consider is the financial aspects for the youth motivations, but mainly the professional association to be mandate, you know, to ensure no financial motivation to the youth. So this will require to accompany them, you know, through the services provided, since they, I mean, they start the pre-service, support them for internship, and as well as across the professional development life.
Okay.
And sustainability definitely will be perceived if we follow those guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you, Ricardo, for those insights. Thank you. Very helpful in regarding the professionalization of young practitioners in the supply chain processes. So let's go to the next segment in the panel. We will focus on solutions based on the experience of our guest speakers. And the first question is for Jean-Pierre. As an implementing partner working hand in hand with governments and donors, what do you see as the key performance areas which have been enhanced due to the involvement of youth in logistics operations?
Thank you for that question. Well, first of all, I think, you know, we've been able to, as Rose was saying, to show a lot of good results with the program. One of them has been, you know, to show the importance of the supply chain in supporting delivery of health services, and particularly with the Young Logistician program. They've been working very closely with the local government, and they've been able to assist them and make them understand better what the role that themselves can play in ensuring the availability of product in their own community. You know, as we often say, you know, no product, no program, and I think they get to understand that. So I think this is you know, their involvement and the fact that they involve the logistician also in their activity show an impact. Other impact of the program has been, for example, you know, at some level we've been noticing a real good improvement in reporting of logistic data practices. At this stage, I think we can say that, for example, at what we call the health zone warehouse, we have a 100% reporting rate. We did a rapid study on just one of the health centers, and we've been able to show that because of the increase of regular increase of product availability, that particular health center that have the sell program have increased their revenue by about 40% over a 1-year period. And then what I think is even more striking, they have reduced the product by 85%. So we'll be doing more of this study and show this speaks for itself. Of course, initially, you know, because of the funding that has been, you know, given to the program, the focus for us has been on malaria and mother and child health. However, because of the improvement of the supply chain, some results that were not really anticipated have been happening also. One in the northern part of the country, one of the health zone doctor reported that there was no more death due to snake bites, because these are people that are working in the field, and they used to have regular shortage of snake bite serum. So that's for us, they basically been avoiding that. On top of the day-to-day management of their stock, young logisticians also have been given the opportunity to work in other areas that are more not only at the commune level, but at the national level, like the distribution of vet net, or working on the seasonal malaria chemo prevention, and other studies like end-use verification for malaria, use of information system, and beyond that, also other recommendations, for example, securing power with in recommending the use of solar panel, and of course, lately they've been very active in supporting at all levels the Benin government response to COVID. So I think also this program, the use of logistician, is a good example as how this has created also an opportunity for leveraging multi-donor support. And this program in Benin, again, has been supported by USAID, UNFPA, and UNICEF. So I think altogether, the program is successful. The main question, of course, and this has been raised before, is sustainability. So we'll be working on that.
Thank you, Jean-Pierre, for exactly that point, pointing out that how these experiences help to lead the way towards sustainable youth engagement in the supply chain and building a robust supply chain management systems in the countries. So the next question is for Herman. How has your experience in the YLPP program demonstrated to you the key success factors that lead to sustained youth engagement in supply chain management?
Okay, thank you, Felipe. The panelists have said a lot already, but I think if I can summarize, I would say that factors that I think is most important for the success of young program or youth interventions will be first the capacity to source good profiles, for the interventions, because the field of health supply chain management is very specific in the supply chain industry, and I think is a key factor, to ensure that health supply chain programs are successful. The second thing I think will be the capacity to retain young people. I don't see long-term result or long-term benefits when donors like Chemonics or other donors support program for young people, and local government or agency cannot work together with them so that the program be more sustainable. So I think is a very important factor. And the third one would be according to youth motivation and job incentives. We have to work more so that the framework of financial motivation for young people be more attractive, and also the young people have the opportunity to do another activities that will improve the work they are doing on the field. For instance, in my health zone, with the help of Chemonics, we are implementing the electronic logistics management information system that help us a lot to solve many problems in stock management here. And we are also trying new approaches of things, and that give the sense to the young logistician that he's really contributing to something, because youth people have the strength and they are available, they are willing to contribute. But if there's no activities in which they can engage, so this will not be a good point for the interventions. And also another approach, another things like continuous training, because everywhere youth are, they want to grow. They want to have more opportunities. They want to be open to new horizons. So a part of the routine activities that young people are doing in the scope of their program, they want to have new opportunities to be linked to another young people, or be open to new opportunities where they can grow and have more impact. So I think these are key aspects, I think, of which are very, very important to have a successful youth intervention programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Herman, for your insights. And the last question is for Daniel. What are some of the most promising instances of private sector engagement and market-based approaches to workforce development that you have seen in the continent?
Thank you, Felipe. So I think one of the best examples that I can recall right now for private sector engagement was in the University of Dar es Salaam. Recently, we implemented a bachelor program for supply chain management in cooperation with the procurement and supply professionals and technicians board. And what it does, what it adds to the program is that they not only help to create the program and to validate the curriculum, but also that means that after the students graduate, they would be also certified as supply chain management professionals. So I think this is a good way to involve the industry into that development of young workforce. And there are also several other activities that are happening right now. So many companies and also many government institutions are opening their doors so that, for instance, the students participating in these bachelor programs and master programs can go and do field trips so that they can grasp a little bit of the knowledge of the profession and that they can apply, let's say, this theoretical knowledge from the university into more practical examples in the facilities that they open. And they are also building case studies in these facilities. So I think these are good examples that we have seen in many countries like Ethiopia, like Kenya, like Rwanda, and they can easily be replicated in other countries in the region and translated into the health supply chain arena.
Thank you, Daniel, for those insights and for sharing with us all those experiences in the continent. So we reached the last segment in our panel, and we will be looking at the future outlook of youth engagement in the supply chain. And the first question is for Yukabet and Rose. To address the barriers posed by high staff turnover or lack of consistent education opportunities, what do you think is the benefit of adopting a formal professionalization framework for public health supply chain professionals?
Okay. One key thing, thank you for the question, Felipe. And one key thing when I look at that question is when we're looking at barriers posed by high staff turnover and lack of consistent education, I think the first thing that needs to be done is a diagnostic analytics to understand why are we having high staff turnover and why is there a lack of consistent education opportunities? Because in as much as professional bodies may come in, but these are not addressed, the same problems are going to repeat themselves. However, that does not dispute that, joining a professional body or a network is quite important, as there are several sort of gains to it. For example, you can gain professional recognition, as when you join these bodies, you're able to also network with like-minded individuals of the same sector. And then also you're able to get some certain level of assessment or exposure to trainings and workshops where people can actually, impact you with what their best practices are or what their experiences are. The other thing is that you're able to take charge of your career. You find that some professional bodies have aspects of CPD where you need to get points for you to be able to, sort of progress. You also to see that some job advertisements, once they come in, they ask for, you need to be either, for example, linked to SIPs, or you need to have a CSCP, recognition and such things. So it gives an aspect of you taking charge of your career. The other thing is that it enables you to broaden your knowledge and you're able to share information and experiences as well with other people. Therefore, adopting such aspects makes you sort of accountable as well to the person who you are based on joining this professional body and ensuring that you're always ensuring you have paid your subscriptions, you're doing the trainings that are required, and you're gaining the necessary experience. Therefore, all these things will now therefore curb, sort of the high staff turnover and also lack of education opportunities, as these are going to be offered through joining the professional bodies. Rose, can I add something?
Thank you, Kevin. I think that you covered a great part. What I would like to add is, and what is very key, is to look at the reason of those turnover. Because if we don't find how to solve, if you don't catch the reason, we always turning around. And then for us is to look at to the journey to self-reliance. So whether some people like the experience in Benin, the young logistician, they already have an association. They already have some basic things and they know how they want to do things, and they know what were the barriers and then what caused that. So is to assess it, and then with them we can see how we can open up a room, and then engage the government and the Ministry of Education, Labor, Health, everything that we can, all those entities that we can ask help for, to help those people to move on, So I think that's a key point. And then we have to involve the national to support the institutionalization of that supply chain professionals. I mean that the host government with the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health, and then other decentralized authorities, they have to find a way how they can combine and then promote the existing organization and the people that are already doing the job. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. You both have raised this issue of the barriers and some of the potential avenues to break them, to tear them down, and that opens the way for the next question to Ricardo, which is basically regarding advocacy, socialization, and policy making. What key steps in South-to-South collaboration will further promote youth development and involvement in supply chain management at multiple levels?
Thank you so much. I think, first of all, we definitely to look for, champions, because without having champions, I'm not sure that something can happen, to make successful the engagement of youth. So I'm taking advantage from Benin program, the way it happened. We identify champion from donor side, champion from government side, champion from decentralized authorities, as well as administrative decentralized authorities. And at the end, we support, the private sector platform where professional association was member. So as the professional association was member of the private sector, the private sector platform has a convention, agreement with the Ministry of Health to support health system strengthening, including supply chain system strengthening. So we use this panel, and this brings me to highlight the second point, which is policy. How to take opportunity of the existing, which is the convention we have between the private sector platform and the Ministry of Health. So this gave us opportunity to use this existing policy to engage both private sector and Ministry of Health to support this youth engagement. And the third thing, which is really important, is the connection, of professional association, university, and also the government, because all those actors are key in the process for continuous, capacity development of the youth that will, in fine, provide expected services and that we are talking about. And to take into account the sustainability, I think the best experience I saw is really to think of at least 3 models. First is how to create demand, on public health side. If public health is not using, the supply chain professional, where is the issues that we need to fix in public health system? And this brings us to establish a model to use, to recruit youth supply chain professional within as a civil servants to support the system. Otherwise, if we are going to use them directly for another program, the public health workers won't be supportive, because they will say, we need those people there, not where you are going to use them. So this helps us to fix that aspect. The second thing is also at that point is how to make sure that we have entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship model that will engage those youth, to provide services to the assistance to the civil servant, health workers working on health centers level, for instance. And Eman gave a real example that they support LMIS in order to improve data completeness, promptitude, and also quality. And the third is how to make sure that governance, model is taken into account, because without taking into account supply chain governance, and specifically decentralized authorities, it will be difficult, to make sustainable the program. So those are the things I can share that can really help to make advocacy, policy, and support a long-term vision of supply chain youth professional engagement to the health outcomes.
Thank you. Thank you, Ricardo, for sharing those insights. And we reached the last question. We don't have much time, but this question will be addressed to you, Cadet, and Ricardo. What was your experience when you first started a career in supply chain? Based on this, what are you doing differently today to increase youth engagement in the sector?
Thank you for the question, Felipe. And I'd like to say my experience has been very positive, thanks to having mentors and people who have seen actually working in supply chain, and I'm able to learn from them. One key thing to point out is that, back then it was seen that supply chain, and especially when you look at the aspects of warehousing, distribution, those were seen as, sort of quote unquote a man's job. So right now we are seeing continuously that, more women are coming into supply chain, more women are becoming hands-on, and we're also seeing aspects whereby women are moving not only from the back end of supply chain, but coming to the front line of supply chain. So when I started, yes, there was not enough news about supply chain, but as time has gone on, I'm seeing that, there's more conferences, there's more workshops, there's more interactions when it comes to supply chain. I personally, in my aspect, I'm ensuring that the youth that I come across, for example, the project that we are currently working on, I have personally with one of my colleagues ensured that we have done for them a talk on career management, how to build themselves in supply chain, what organizations and professional networks as well to align themselves with, because we realize that also to go far, we need to go together, because at the end of it all, it cannot only take one person to change the entire sector. We all need each other. Yeah.
Okay,
Daniel?
thank you, Yukabet. Ricardo, we have more time to pose the question to Jean-Pierre, so I will ask both of you to be very concise. First, Ricardo.
Sure, thank you, Felipe. I will say most the same thing as Yukabet, but my personal experience is that I was, a member of the first promotion learning supply chain in Benin, in the university, and you can see how much this should be challengeable for me. But to address these challenges, after my degree, I mobilized my mates to establish a national professional association, which is ASLOP today. So what I'm doing so far in order to encourage youth engagement in supply chain, you can see establishing this professional association, I really empower youth and until initiate the national youth young logistician professional program that Jean-Pierre, Rose, all partners in Benin are supporting now. So this is my personal initiative, and going forward, as you know, I'm sharing Beninese Logistics Association, Professional Association experiences by supporting other countries in West Africa, Central Africa, in Africa, National Association. And also we established recently sub-regional federation of association and the African Logistician Association Federation, for which I'm the president now. So going forward, I'm using those network in order to continue supporting youth engagement across the Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Ricardo. And we have one, the same question to Jean-Pierre, please.
Okay, from me, I'll take it from a different angle because I'm a pharmacist, so I'm not a logistician. So I learn somehow, to be part of it. But I think, when you look at the program in Benin, I think what he can teach people is that actually, the young logistician or logistician as a whole, most of the time are not health professionals. However, I think the program in Benin can show, and not only in Benin, of course, around the world, but that actually they have a major role to play in, within the health professional staff. So I think, and they can contribute definitely in health services delivery. So that's my take on that. I think, and people are moving that way. I think look at central medical stores across countries, typically people would say you need a pharmacist to manage it. I think people are moving away from that. By regulation, yes, sometimes you need a pharmacist. You need a pharmacist to be there. Doesn't mean that he has to be the one managing. It's better to have a good manager, sometimes that maybe somebody that just a health professional that might not be good enough.
Thank you, Jean-Pierre. And we reached the end of our panel. And before we close it out, let me try to summarize three main takeaways that I have received from the generous insights that our panelists have provided us. The first one is that youth engagement in supply chains, in the health supply chains, but also in other supply chains like the public education supply chains and others, it is critical to open up these opportunities. I mean, to really take steps to engage them from awareness to capacity building, to working with them and partnering with them. And we have seen different examples of experiences in the continent that indicate potential ways to do this. And we also have seen from our panelists how this engagement helped to make the supply chain more effective, more efficient, more innovative, and more responsive to local needs. So this is the first takeaway that I gather from your insights. The second one is that in order to build a robust, a sustainable supply chain, this has to be done in a professional way. And all our panelists have insisted that each one from its own or her own angle have presented to us very powerful arguments for going in the taking the way to professionalize the logistics careers, to open up professional opportunities for young people, men and women, to participate in the supply chain. And by doing this, the supply chains will be more sustainable, will be more efficient and better for each country. And the third takeaway that I gather from your insights is that there are opportunities for the future as well. I mean, some of you started to mention how some young people are already have moved beyond being employed or being part of the or being interns or being hired in the supply chain to become entrepreneurs as well, to also become themselves supply chain entrepreneurs or participants, very active participants in a specific component of the supply chain process. I think that's the way to go. And I think it's very important that the countries, each country assess the possibilities there, particularly now in these new times where we are moving away from global supply chains into regional supply chains. So this is very important that each country counts with a very professional workforce that is able to work, not only to work within these supply chains, but also to become entrepreneurs and owners of supply chains or components within the supply chains. So without any further ado, I just want to thank our panelists. Thank you for all your insights. Thank you for being here, and wish you all the best in your endeavors. And also to our audience, thank you for being with us, and also expecting that you will find this panel to be very useful and helpful for your decision-making processes in the near future. Thank you and have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you
Bye.
all.
Thank you
Bye.
very much. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Okay, I think that we can cut.